All right, as I mentioned already, Labor might have held on to the seat of Dunkley following the by-election over the weekend, but there are some positives there, both for Labor but also the coalition. Firstly, the strong swing towards a Liberal candidate, particularly in working class suburbs. And they are the seats that are hyper-marginal for Labor right around the country. Secondly, an equally strong swing away from the Greens, a collapse in their vote out of the more affluent areas. Now, this, as I said, will also impact the Teals at the next federal election. For more on this, let's bring in the Australian's Victorian political reporter, Rachel Baxendale. Rachel, you've done some terrific analysis that I read this morning in The Australian. The near 7% swing, and you've broken down these working class suburbs. I'll use Carrum Downs as one example. I mean, this is heartland Labor. This is a tradie vote Labor. This is TAFE, not bachelor degrees. These are, relatively young family, mortgage holder areas. This is where the whole Labor working families line should resonate. John Black, I mentioned him at the top, former Labor senator. He says some of those issues like SUVs and the ute tax that's coming with those new emission standards, they also played out with tradies in Dunkley. You know the seat well. What other issues do you think were there front and centre?
Yeah, I think that's right, Peter. I think the issues about that SUV issue, I think from this data it would appear that played an interesting role, because it was interesting that Carrum Downs, there was a very significant swing towards the Libs that didn't necessarily apply to a lot of other working class areas in the suburb, and as our analysis showed this morning, a lot of the other significant swings to the Libs were in some of the wealthier areas of the seat that turned really hard against the Morrison government in 2022, and quite a significant proportion of that vote, came back to the Liberals on Saturday. And I think, cost of living's clearly the biggest issue, was clearly the biggest issue of the election. And there clearly were some green shoots for Nathan Conroy and the Liberals in that result. And more importantly, if you extend that nationally, and the swing from Saturday was replicated nationally, we'd be looking at a situation where Labor would be forced into a very hung parliament. They'd be forced to do deals with not only the Greens and the crossbenchers. That's not a situation that either Anthony Albanese or Peta Dutton wants to find themselves in, and really both of them need to do significantly better than they did on Saturday night, and look for improvements and ways to convince voters that they're the right person for the job.
I'm going to get into the Victorian Liberals in a moment, because there's huge eruptions there. The moment that the campaign ended in Dunkley, they've just all basically thrown the toys out of the cot and had a big fight on a range of things. But before I do, neighbouring the seat of Dunkley is the seat of Flinders. That's held by a Liberal, Zoe McKenzie. I think almost before we'd left the set here at Sky, she'd posted a congratulatory message to the Labor candidate who eventually won. A lot of Liberals didn't like that. They thought she should have got out there and congratulated her own candidate, Nathan Conroy, first. Words were used like flawed, unforgivable, naive, shows zero political judgment. Fair criticism or not, Rachel?
Look, certainly there were a lot of Liberals who were quite upset by it. I haven't had a chance to put this to Zoe personally. To be fair to her, it's not something I've covered personally. But one of the other suggestions that was being put around by Liberals was that she had been asked to campaign asked by the Leader's office, by Peta Dutton's office, to be part of a media event on Friday, and for whatever reason declined that, and they were reportedly quite upset about that as well. So evidently quite a few people unhappy with her. Sometimes a bit of sportsmanship is not such a bad thing in politics, and perhaps that was what she was trying to do. But as you say, I think you have to have loyalty to your own team, and the fact that she was congratulating Labor before she congratulated her own colleague, I can understand why colleagues were upset with that. On the other hand, you know, you do have to sometimes put aside party rivalries in doing your job as an MP, and sometimes you do have to work with the MP in the neighbouring seat. Ironically, Jodie Bellier and Nathan Conroy are going to have to work together now because he's the local mayor and she's the local federal MP. So, you know, there is room for civil relations with your rivals, but I can completely understand why there are some very annoying...
I think timing. I think should have left that till the next day. But anyway, we'll see what is made of that.